Make the ground shake.
Magandang umaga po sa ating mga tagapanood. Ang programang Boses ng OFW ay ginawa upang maging venue ng mga OFWs kung saan mapag-uusapan ng mga OFWs ang kanilang mga pananaw tungkol sa mga national issues sa ating bansang Pilipinas. Ngayong araw na ito, inyong matutunghayan ang ating mga imbitadong speakers, kung saan nabibilang o masasabi nating mga successful OFWs. Sila ay nanirahan ng ilang taon sa abroad para magtrabaho. Pero bago yan, ako, si Mafi Daknash mula sa Jeddah, Saudi Arabia. Our first speaker is Venecio Legaspi. He is currently the president of Nortehanon in Jeddah and Director General of Overseas Filipino Workers Council of Leaders or OCL. Our second speaker is Johnny Genpadillo. He is the Logistic Director of OCL. And the third speaker for tonight is Satar Sultan. He is the spokesperson of the United Bangsaranao Council or UBC. And the last one is Yusuf Hermino. He is the Group Director of Jeddah Gardeners Club. Good morning, gentlemen. We have prepared some important questions concerning the Philippine national issues. You are given two choices. You can answer or skip the question. It is optional. In this discussion, all your sides will be recognized. But first, I would like to enumerate some of the questions. Question number 1 is, what is the relevance of the election in your life as OFW? Question number 2, are you optimistic that an inclusive growth is still possible under the existing political system? Number 3, how will you rate the quality of life for ordinary Filipino like Juan de la Cruz in the Philippines? Scale 1 to 10. Number 4, how do you intend to disperse the nation's wealth in equal opportunities to benefit the general public, considering that the politics and economy is controlled by few family and big corporations? Number 5, despite the enormous contribution of OFWs, why there's no real recognition from the Philippine government or Pinoy administration? Number 6, what can you say about the action of President Pinoy vetoing for the second time the increase in SSS pension? Number 7, give us your views about the terminal fee, laglag bala or tanim bala in NAIA, and the Balikbayan box. Number 8, what is Bangsamoro Basic Law or BBL in your opinion? And the last question is, what is the relevance of a genuine proper presentation of overseas Filipino workers in the legislation?
Napakalaki ng kinalaman ng eleksyon at ng magiging resulta ng eleksyon, hindi lang sa buhay natin as OFW, kung hindi sa buhay ng mga pamilya natin na nasa Pilipinas. Dahil siyempre, kung sino yung mananalo, sila yung magmamanage ng bansa, sila yung magiging pinuno. Ano mang batas na gagawin nila, directly or indirectly, ay makakaapekto sa buhay natin as OFWs at sa buhay ng ating pamilya na nasa Pilipinas. Napakahalaga na makilahok ang mga Pilipino, hindi lamang sa Pilipinas, kundi yun din mga nasa ibang bansa, sa eleksyon. Dahil responsibilidad natin kung aling magiging resulta nun at kinalabasan ng eleksyon. Hindi natin po pwedeng sabihin na hindi tayo makikilahok, tapos panay ang sisi natin sa gobyerno. Nasaan tayo nung kinakailangan pumili ng leader? Diba? Kaya napakahalaga at nagpapasalamat tayo sa gobyerno dahil binigyan nila ng pagkakataon yung mga OFW sa absentee voting. Naging masyadong malawak yung panahon na binigay nila sa atin para magparehistro. Kaya ito ay isang pagkakataon na hindi natin dapat palagpasin para sa kinabukasan natin at ang ating mga pamilya.
For my 20 years here in the kingdom, and since the first time the overseas absentee voting was implemented, I was there. I voted, and I voted years after years during election. Let's talk about the statistics. According to the Commission on Election, there are 1.4 million registered overseas absentee voting at this time. And the turnover or turnout in 2013 is around 16.11%. Multiplied it by 1 we only are looking about 230,000 votes. The question is this really a big factor? Is it relevant for OFW? Yes, it is, because we are not only looking about the OFWs per se abroad. We are looking of the families back home. Minsan kasi, sinasabi natin, I only have one vote. If I will vote or not, it will not make a big difference. Isa lang yung boto ko. But then, this year, this time, I think we need to engage the OFW, because this is the time we need to show that we have the force. Matagal ng panahon na hindi nila binibigyan ng importansya tayong mga OFW. This is the time, if we have 1.4 million overseas absentee votings, you multiply it by 10 with your friends and relatives, we could be electing a senator of 14 million. Last 2013, the lowest senatorial candidate actually garnered around 13 million. So, we could be electing a senator if we only join our hand. Yes, there's a big relevance for us OFW to be involved, to register, or we have already registered, and to campaign for those people whom we knew we could be and could be of help, not only for OFW, but for the Philippines as a general.
For me, there is a real relevance on it. Lalo-lalo na tayo mga OFW. But there are 2 points to consider. First, is it a right or an obligation? And it is both. It is a right to exercise our sovereignty or the right to vote. It is also an obligation. That's why it's so sad to say that out of 1.4 million absentee voters registered by the COMELEC across, or even let us just take consideration in Saudi Arabia, and it's only about 100,000 or 200,000 obliged to vote on that particular election. See the difference and what would be the relevant into a national election or figures. But if the 1.4 million votes would exercise and do their obligation, here comes the relevance into the national aspect of election. It is true that if this 1.5 million consider that the 1.5 million be multiplied at least by 5 and 5 times 4, it means around 40 million votes. And if you are running for a certain position and this 40 million goes to the right candidate, I should say that OFW votes is so relevant in this particular aspect.
Well, personally, para sa akin naman, personally, it's not really relevant for me as an OFW or as an Bangsamoro. That's why in every result of the election, still our place has nothing to do. Walang nangyayari. Walang nangyayari. So, the result of the voting in absentee voting, kaya po napakaliit. Dahil maybe the people or the OFW are frustrated. Bakit? In spite of campaign from the COMELEC and the consulate, but still, the turnout of the vote is very little. It's because the OFW is frustrating. Even though nagkakaroon ng leader, but still the OFW is disregarded. In general, and quote-unquote, in general, the OFW are disregarded. So the result also is, the OFW is not even go to the president to vote, exercise their right of suffrage. So for me personally, there is no such significance of this. Since 2000, I've never voted for any candidates, though sometimes I participated in the election. Thank you.
Are you optimistic that an inclusive growth is still possible under the existing political system?
For me, it's yes. Everything is possible. lalo na po tayo sa ating bansang Pilipinas, kami mga OFW, ay napaka-optimistic na mayroong growth na nangyayari sa ating bansa. It may be not that much na nakikita natin ang growth or ang progreso ng ating bansa. Let us take step by step. Meron po tayo nakitang growth from 2015 to 2016. But the big question is, nasaan ang growth na ito? Saan napupunta? Saan siya nagkakaroon ng impluensya? O ang mga Pilipino ba ang nakikinabang ng paglago ng ating bansa? So it remains on two sides of the coin. The government side as well as the normal Filipinos. So para po sa akin, kung gusto po natin makita talaga ang actual growth na to, na dapat po ang gobyerno at ang ating mga kapwa Pilipino ay magkaroon ng common ground kung saan para makita ang progreso ng isang bansa. Yes, hindi gaano kalaki, hindi gaano maantig, lalong-lalo na ang mga OFW. But I think, kung pagbibigyan natin ng toong pansin, kung mayroong posibilidad, malaki ang aking paniniwala na may posibilidad na magkaroon ng progreso o pag-unlad ng ating bansa.
Yes, for me, kung mapapansin natin, yearly is nagkakaroon ng increase of budget. Right? So, in that way, maliwanag na mayroon talagang growth because of that increase in budget, in military, education, and health. Even for the budget for the OFW, if there is. But, hindi siya ganong kalaki yung impact sa atin, especially for the OFW. If only this growth can be properly implemented to the grounds, makikita natin ang effect. But because of these corruptions, hindi natin nakikita yung growth. What's the use of having trillion na budget? If pagdating naman sa mga barangay level, nagiging tiwai na lang. There is no sense. We cannot even sense that there is a growth. So ang nakikita natin dito, in the general view of the masses, walang growth, but still the budget increasing. So where we can get this budget, this allocation? So we OFW, as one of the contributors to that growth, and the government must not deny this contribution from OFW.
You mentioned about the current political system, and if I am optimistic, no, I am not. In my view, this political system has proven to be ineffective. Simula nang umalis si Marcos, iisa na lang yung tinahak ng political system natin eh. Sabi natin democracy. But what we actually are seeing is a rule of the political elite. Ilang pamilya lang yung nagpapatakbo ng political system sa Pilipinas. And probably I'll touch on the political dynasty issue later on. Para sa akin siguro it's time for the Philippines to adopt a different form of government na magkakatulad nga na sabi ni Satar kanina, there are so many sectors of society which are being marginalized intentionally or unintentionally by the government. Ang Mindanao, for one, is a highly marginalized sector of the Philippines. Lagi lang nagko-concentrate sa Manila, sa mga highly urbanized countries. Nandun lang ang development. Sabi nga ni Satar kanina, nagkakasgate ba yung growth sa regular na barangay? Yung growth na sinabi ni Jean kanina, yung economy natin lumalago, pero nakikita ba natin yung sa barangay? Nadadagdagan ba yung mga classroom sa eskwelahan year-on-year basis? Nadadagdagan ba o nakapagpapatayo ba ng bagong ospital? May mga gamot ba sa klinika? May mga public doctors ba? Yung mga basic needs ng community. Nakakapagpagawa ba sila ng bagong daan ngayon sa probinsya? Katulad nga ng sabi ni Satar kanina, every year, tumataas ang budget. Pero every year, ganun at ganun din. Pag school opening, makikita mo yung mga bata nag-aaral sa ilalim ng puno ng mangga dahil walang classroom. Saan na pupunta yung budget? This kind of democracy, for me, is ineffective because it only contributes to corruption. Siguro panahon na para tingnan natin yung possibility ng federal form of government where provinces and regions will have some sort of autonomy and power on how to run and manage their specific area, regions. Dahil talagang merong mga mayayamang lugar sa Pilipinas na kinukuha lang ng national government yung kita, nagko-contribute sila, tapos ang development lagi sa Metro Manila or sa Greater Manila area. This political system, for me, is ineffective, and I think it's high time for the Philippines to think about a different form of government where growth and prosperity will be cascaded down to the lowest level sa society.
Okay, I just wanted to share with you statistically the GDP or gross domestic product of the Philippines. Actually, it's reduced between 5 to 5.5% growth. Ito po ay isang malaking growth para sa Pilipinas dahil kung i-translate po ito doon sa mga tao, sa manufacturing, sa mga basic services, tataas po ang purchasing power at ang magagamit na pera para pambili ng ordinaryong mamamayan. But the question here is that this actually na-translate ba ito o nakakarating ba ito sa ordinaryong tao? Kagaya ng sinabi ni Yusuf kanina, the challenge is, am I saying this all-inclusive growth that you are saying or you were saying doon sa ordinary Filipinos? Kasi sa ngayon, the present government actually is trumpeting about the Forbes program, which is the Pantawid Pamilya whatsoever, that they are giving a subsidy to the poorest of the poor. Kung sana ang gross domestic product natin ay tumataas ng ganyan, dapat nakakarating ito sa ordinary folk. Hindi na dapat ang gobyerno magbibigay ng mga dole-out sa mga mahirap dahil nararamdaman mo na ang gobyerno, ang ekonomiya ay gumaganda. Malalaman mo lang yan kung nararamdaman yan ng mga ordinaryong tao. Pero hindi. So, all-inclusive growth for me is actually malawak na aspeto yan eh. Lalo na, sabi nga ni Ika, sa present form of government. Sa present form of government natin, we are multi-party system. Mayroon tayong tatlong branches of government, which is the executive, which is the president, the legislative, both houses, Congress and Senate, and the judiciary. Although itong klaseng system ay may check and balance, sometimes, kagaya ng sinasabi ni Satar, tumataas yung budget, nagkakaroon ng million or trillion, pero dahil sa sistema ng politika natin, minsan kung saan ka lang malapit sa mga power that be, kung ikaw ay isang politician, nakakakuha ka ng magandang share. Look at the DAP.
Yes.
Ito ay isang malaking insulto sa ating mga Pilipino na hindi natin alam kung saan napupunta to at hindi nakakarating sa common people. So, very relative. Yung all-inclusive growth dahil hindi nakikita ng regular na or ng ordinary na tao or si Juan de la Cruz. At saka, siguro, yung present form of government is not the question. Ang question siguro is kung sino ang nakaupo sa gobyerno. Kung sino ang mamumuno. It doesn't mean that we have to be a monarchy or a parliamentary form of government or a federalism form of government. kung sino ang nandyan, yun siguro ang dapat natin tingnan.
How will you rate the quality of life for ordinary Filipino like Juan de la Cruz in the Philippines? Scale 1 to 10.
The question is relevant kasi pag sinabi nating ordinary, ano ba ang ordinary or an average? Kung ang pag-uusapan natin is average Filipino, ito yung between yung mayaman at saka yung mahirap. So ikaw yung nasa gitna. So statistically, ang sabi nila, an average Filipino earns between 30,000 to 80,000 pesos per month. Yung survey ng natin sa National Statistics Office. Kung kumikita ka ng ganito sa Pilipinas, ibig sabihin, you are considered an average or ordinary Juan de la Cruz. But the question here is, 30,000 per month is enough? Magbabayad ka ng tuition sa mga bata. Kung wala kang bahay, uupa ka ng bahay. Kung wala kang sasakyan, mamamasahe ka. Kung may sasakyan ka, bibili ka ng gasolina. 30,000 for you is not enough. So in a scale of 1 to 10, on ordinary, I don't think the scale is actually comparable to the way we define average or ordinary Juan de la Cruz. Siguro, sa mga 80, pwede. Pero the question is, ang tanong is, dapat ba or mas marami ba ngayon ang naghihirap? Hinihila ba sila sa lower bottom part or hinihila sila pataas because of the growth that I have told you earlier na mayroon tayong 5 to 5% growth in GDP. Dapat tumataas din yung pamantayan ng mga pamilya. An average of 4 to 5 family, which is of course 2 or 3 children. Pero hindi maramdaman din ng ordinary Juan de la Cruz. A scale of 1 to 10 ordinary in the current situation, siguro masasabi ko around 4 to 5. Kasi hindi mo nararamdaman. As ordinary Juan de la Cruz, hindi ko nakikita yung growth na sinasabi ng gobyerno based on GDP. It's not translated to the ordinary Juan de la Cruz.
So sa akin kasi is na yung usaping quality ng isang pamumuhay ng isang ordinaryong Juan de la Cruz ay napakalawak. Napakalawak in a sense na saan ba tayo mag-uumpisa? Sa kita, sa pamamaraan ng pamumuhay ng mga tao, sa suporta na ibinibigay ng gobyerno, o kinakailangan ang pansin ay pantay-pantay upang masabi natin may isang kwalidad o quality life ng normal Filipino.
As a whole, yes.
As a whole, masasabi ko pa rin sa ngayon, rate from 1 to 10, nasa middle pa rin tayo. 5. Bakit 5? Kasi marami pa rin naghihirap. Tama yung sabi ni Benny na marami pa rin ang below the poverty line. Marami pa rin ang kumikitang pamilya across averagely of less than 30,000 a month. At yung 30,000 a month ay hindi makakapuno sa mga pangangailangan. Ngayon, bilang isang normal na Filipino o mamamayan, ano ang dapat natin gawin? Yun po ang para sa akin, ang opinion ko ay kailangan rin natin pong tanungin yun sa sarili natin. Tama, may obligasyon ng ating pamahalaan na itaas ang antas na pamumuhay ng bawat Pilipino. Napapanahon na dapat bigyang pansin ng ating pamahalaan kung paano mabigyan ng tamang antas sa pamamaraan ng, sabihin natin yung basic needs ng ating mamamayan. Sa antas ng edukasyon, sa antas ng magandang pamumuhay, tamang pamumuhay, sa antas ng pamamaraan ng ating gobyerno, at higit sa lahat, maitawid ang pangangailangan ng ating mamamayan.
How do you intend to disperse the nation's wealth in equal opportunities to benefit the general public, considering that the politics and economy is controlled by few family and big corporations.
In my opinion, ang poverty kasi, hindi lang po pwedeng isisi lahat sa gobyerno. Ang poverty, hindi rin pwedeng lahat isisi doon sa individual. No? Dapat kasi merong magandang environment para maging mahusay yung pamumuhay ng mga tao. Sa klase ng pagpapatakbo sa Pilipinas, ang development lahat lagi nasa cities. So ang mga tao sa probinsya umaalis, nagbabakasakaling pumunta sa city para magkaroon ng magandang buhay. Urban migration, which in my opinion, should not be the case. Napakalawak ng lupa sa probinsya. Philippines is a largely agricultural country. Meron tayong mayamang lupa, pero nakalimutan yung aspeto ng agrikultura sa sinasabi nating development. Maraming mahihirap sa syudad na hindi dapat nasa syudad to begin with. Nananahimik sila sa probinsya, pero dahil ang tingin nila walang magandang kinabukasan para sa pamilya nila, they have to migrate to the city. Pagdating nila sa city, wala namang hanap buhay na naghihintay sa kanila because they don't have the right qualifications. So most of these people end up in the streets. Nagkaanak, street children, and the cycle goes on and on and on. The government, I think, has the responsibility to provide an environment where people can be empowered to have better lives. Sabi nga ni Jean kanina, education. Diba? Yung aspeto ng kalusugan, yung pinakamalaki talagang responsibilidad yung education. Kung edukado yung populace, mas meron silang opportunity na magkaroon ng magandang trabaho. Marami ring, yung katulad nga ng sabi mo kanina na graduate nga pero wala namang opportunity kasi walang industriya ang papasukan. Kulang yung mga employment opportunity sa kanila. So, when we look at poverty, we shouldn't always look at it as the sole responsibility of the government because it is not. And also, we cannot blame the people because if the government is not giving an environment where people can uplift themselves, dapat hand in hand yun Pagtutulungan. Kaya nga, medyo I will disagree with you, Satar, dun sa election. Kaya nga, in any election, we have that privilege to make a change, to affect change. No? Dahil nandun at pagkakataon nating mamili ng mga mamumuno, ng mga taong magpapatakbo ng bayan natin. Let's not even think about yung presidente or vice president, but how about the mayors and the barangay captains, where these people have direct influence, di ba, dun sa pamumuhay natin. So, yung sa election, okay, kung ayaw mo ng national election, well and good, you have the right to do that, but at least, yung mamimili ng barangay captain, ng mayor, ng governor, na merong direktang apekto sa'yo at sa pamumuhay mo, sana makuha natin yung opportunity na mamili kung sino yung ilalagay natin sa posisyon.
Well, lahat naman siguro tayo may points regarding that. Kasi yung mga question kasi, interrelated yan sa poverty. Lumalabas yung mga statistic o yung result ng NAPSI, which is the National Anti-Poverty Commission. Nandyan yung top 20 na province, poorest provinces. Okay? So it means the government has the idea whose these provinces has the poorest and in needs of support of the government financially. Okay? So why the government are ignoring these 20 provinces na alam naman nila na poor? Why not this budget? Ilaan na lang dito sa mga poorest provinces, which is the 5 provinces is included to the top 20 provinces na poorest provinces. So why this government ignore this? Why? Well, in fact, we have the budget. We have the trillion budget. If only the government will develop our place, we can be eliminated in the poorest provinces. There is one time an interview, back in 2000, when there was a war, all out war in Opera. There is one fighter was interviewed by the media. I don't know, I cannot remember, it's ABS-CBN or GMA. Bakit po kayo nakikipaglaban sa gobyerno? Ano po bang pinaglalaban nyo? And he answered, sincerely, inabando na kami ng aming gobyerno. Kaya kami lumalaban. You see? So meaning, itong kahit sino man ang leader, kung wala rin siyang puso, kung sino ba talaga ang nangangailangan, wala rin mangyayari. The problem in Mindanao, which is very old, centuries, complex in the world, not just in Asia, pinakamatagal na problema sa Mindanao ay problema ng buong mundo. Ito ang pinakamatagal. So second thing, the Philippines can observe or study the neighbors like the Malaysia. Why they are very developed? Why the poverty is, yung poverty range nila maliit. We have the Singapore, we have the South Korea. We have these guidelines, but the problem is maybe the government don't want to implement. We have the idea, we have the brain, matatalino tayo mga Pilipino. But why we cannot implement this? Yes, there is an hindrance. Maybe, there is. But why? Sa amin sa province, sa Lanao, kumain ka lang ng mangga, itapon mo lang, tutubo na yan. Our land is very fertile. So why the government did not support us? Wala kaming mga irrigation. The provincial agriculture, the MSU, there is MSU, the Mindanao State University, there is a college of agriculture. They are requesting many times to the national government to increase the budget in terms of agriculture. But ano binigay sa amin? Binigyan daw kami ng around 100 million, pero doon naman napunta sa scam. Sinasabi na binigay daw sa amin, pero nung makita, wala naman pala. Yung 100 million, napunta lang pala kay na police. You see? So, we, Bangsamoro, Muslim, why we are continuing? Why we are asking for our self-governance? Why? It's because of this. The government abandoned us. And this unitary government, highly centralized government, is no longer working. Look at our neighbors. Have the highly centralized government? Mag-a-apply ka ng labor, kailangan mo pumunta na Manila. What about those applicants cannot go to Manila? Wala silang pamasahe. So they are being deprived. So this is part of the operation. This the government can be blamed, not just the people, but the government, because they know the problem, but they fail to solve the problem. Maybe the government will increase the taxes of the few elites. Taxes for the corporations. Isa sa panlalaking solution. Tapos yung mga low-income earners, paliitin yung mga tax sa kanila. Diba? Palakin yung tax sa mga mayaman, sa mga elites. Kasi ang mga poor, nagiging poorist eh. Ngayon, sa lumabas ng mga millionaires sa Pilipinas, lalong tumaas yung mga wealthy na, Enrique, Tan, lahat sila. Pero mas lumaki yung poverty, di ba? Lumaki yung poverty, pero tumaas yung mga wealth ng mga mayayaman. See, if only these big businessmen are helping the government, may eliminate natin itong mga, at least not to eliminate, at least can minimize this poverty. So, increase the taxes for the elites, for the corporation. I think it will be helpful.
Ilang pamilya yung humahawak ng malalaking asyenda at lupa, di ba? Sa Luzon, sa Visayas, hindi ko alam yung sa kaso ng Mindanao, baka ganun din. Ilang pamilya yung nagkokontrol ng malalaking lugar. I think CARP has good intentions. Yung Comprehensive Agrarian Reform Program ni Cory Aquino, it has good intentions of distributing wealth. Ang problema yung implementation. Na-implement ba ng tama? Ang ginawa ng mga may-ari ng land, kinonvert. Hindi na agricultural land. Ibinenta sa developer, naging housing. So, hindi nakasali sa CARP. Diba? Sana kung talagang sincero yung pag-iisip ng mechanism ng CARP, naisip nila na po pwedeng lusutan. Kaso mga yung nag-implement, yung nag-devise ng CARP at yung mag-i-implement ng CARP belong to the same family who controls the land.
Yes.
Kaya hindi nila na-oversee yung ganun. Pero hindi, para sa akin, hindi naman kailangan basta na ipamigay yung kayamanan eh. We have to make people responsible and work for it. For example, maraming mga land na hindi na de-develop pero pag-aari ng pamahalaan. Anong ginagawa? Nakatenga lang. Bakit hindi nyo, katulad ng ginawa ni Imelda yata before, yung Balik Probinsya program. Pero pag pinabalik mo sa probinsya, bigyan mo ng
Micro-business.
Exactly. Bigyan mo ng pondo para magkaroon ng negosyo. Hindi mo lang basta itinapon sa probinsya, bahala kayo sa buhay mo.
Bibigyan ka lang yata ng pamasahe sa bus.
Pamasahe pabalik.
Tapos hindi na...
Tapos magugutom ka uli, babalik ka uli sa Maynila para kumuha uli ng Balik Probinsya program. Yun nga, the government has a big responsibility on how to make this work. Kaya sila nandyan, they're supposed to be more intelligent than us. They're supposed to know better than us. That's why we are common people. Wala tayo sa posisyon. Pero anong ginagawa nila? But yung distribution of wealth, I think we have plenty of wealth to be distributed, but the government has to come up with a mechanism where the people will be responsible to take care of this wealth that will be granted to them, whether perpetually or, you know, on a certain period of time.
I would like to echo on what you said about the comprehensive agrarian reform. Actually, there was even an amendment to the law. You have the expanded CARB, and sad to say, tapos na. Yung CARB actually is tapos na yung... Pero, kung titingnan natin, if we wanted to say about if we are talking about the wealth, the natural resources, how are we going to dispense this way? Yung CARB is a good vehicle. The intention is good, but as what you say, the implementation is yet, or is very dismal. Kasi nga, look, the very few, let's take for example, let's not beat the bush. Let's take for example, the Hacienda Loisita.
Exactly.
Ang daming mga reklamo, ang daming mga problema, there's no proper distribution, but they always say a loophole within the law na hindi nila na ipamahagi yon sa mga bibigyan ka lang ng share of stock or something to that effect. What is it? It's just a piece of paper. Ang kailangan ng ordinary farmer is a piece of land where they can grow and they can harvest and they can send it to the market and get the money where they have put it. But the challenge is, nung ibinigay sa'yo, yung para sa'yo, ang problema naman, ang gobyerno, there is no appropriate support system. Minsan, nahirapan silang support. Ako, may isa akong taryang nakuha dahil I've been working for this particular landlord for years. Dahil sa CARB, natuwa ako, binigyan ako ng 2 hectares. Ang problema, dahil nga manggagawa ko, wala akong pera para bumili ng binhi, para bumili ng fertilizer, para magpaani, para dalhin sa market yung inani ko. So saan ako pupunta? I have to go back again to my landlord at uutang ako, sasabihin ko, ibibenta ko ulit sa iyo yung produkto ko. System has not changed. Kasi yun pa rin, we are still indebted to the very few landholders na alam natin kung sino yan. So, sana, kung nagkaroon lang ng proper implementation, at the same time, nagkaroon ng proper support ng gobyerno, dahil mayroon namang budget, at talagang tinutukan yung comprehensive agrarian reform, yung mga tao, as what you said earlier, there would be a lesser folks from the countryside migrating to the urban, at hindi na maninirahan sa slums at makikipag-awayan sa mga pulis pag dinisperse sila at tinilipat. Dahil they will be contented to be in the province. Sa totoo lang ako, pag nag-retire ako, mas gusto ko sa probinsya. Simple yung pamumuhay. Pero yung mga taong nandoon, they don't see that. Kasi walang proper support system. Although mayroong batas, ang problema minsan yung implementation ng batas. Kaya yung mga landholders, siya pa rin yung mga mayayaman sa atin. As what you said, very few. At alam natin kung sino yung mga ito.
Can I add something to that? Yun nga, kasi yung CARB was authored by the very people who have close association with those who own the land. Diba? Cory Aquino, katulad ng sinabi mo kanina, sa Hacienda Loisita, imposible namang I mean, it's impossible for Cory Aquino to sell out yung kanyang mga relatives, diba? So somehow, they have to create a way para medyo, you know, they can play around, you know, provide a lot of loopholes para hindi parang ano lang yan eh, parang candy coating the problem. I think it's high time talaga for the Filipino people to be involved in creating the laws. Hindi lang tayo yung passive na kung ano lang yung isubo ng mga senador, kung ano yung isubo ng kongresista, yun na yun. In other countries, the congressmen and congresswomen consults with the council, yung mga provincial council, which is representative of the people. No? Kaya dapat talaga mabago yung political system itself. How the Philippines is being run.
As said by Yusuf, tama po yun na dapat makailam na ang mga Pilipino. Kaya taking into like on a finance point of view, as a finance practitioner, so it's high time na makialam tayo at lagyan ng konting ngipin in terms of control. Control kung saan yung pamamahagi ng anumang resources meron ang gobyerno, ang Pilipinas, ay napupunta talaga sa tamang tao. Tama rin po yun ang sinasabi natin na kung sino yung mayaman, siya nakakakuha ng malaking share. O bumabalik man kung anumang pinagati-hati. Bakit? Kasi yun na po ang mentalidad nating mga Pilipino. Not to discount the traditional farmers that we have. Kung wala kang banhe, wala kang fertilizer, wala kang patubig, ang unang-unang mong tatakbuhan is kung sino ang nagbigay sa'yo ng lupa. Bakit ganon? Dahil yun na po ang traditional thinking natin mga Pilipino. Kaya para po sa akin, ang opinion ko ay dapat a total 360 turnaround ng konsepto natin na kung saan i-educate natin, especially like the farmers, which it happened. Again, may loopholes pa rin. Dahil hindi ganun kabigat o ngipin na binibigyang control, nagka-counter-check, is it the project working or not? Lahat, for example, in Mindanao, ilang bilyon ang binigay ng gobyerno in terms of agricultural development. Sinasabi ni Kasatar, hindi nakarating. It happened only to scam. Which is true. Bakit? Again, it goes with the control. Check and balance. Yun ang kulang po sa atin ngayon. Ngayon, if the government allows us to have equal participation between government representative and the normal Filipino, na siya magsi-safeguard ng ating yaman, I believe na merong magkakaroon tayo ng at least kahit hindi ganun kabilis yung change, it happened. And this happened across the globe now. If you would see statistically, bakit marami ngayon ang hina-hire by the government itself, an external auditor or a group of auditors para mag-counter-check anumang pera o anumang wealth na pinalalabas nila. Because they believe na kung yung normal na tao or tayo mga Filipino ay may malasakit doon sa 5 sentimo na ini-invest o pinamamahagi ng ating gobyerno, magkakaroon saysay. So again, it boils down in an issue that it's not the responsibility of the government alone. It should be at high time that the Filipinos should take responsibility on it. Kung ikaw ay isang tao na tinuturing mo na bahay mo o tahanan ang Pilipinas, siguro naman magiging kampante ka. Ano mang inilabas mo dyan, meron kang malasakit. Hindi lang basta labas ka ng labas, lustay ka ng lustay, na walang babalik. So, para po sa akin, equal opportunity, equal share, equal responsibility between the government as well as the stakeholder of that particular project.